Let me start my speech in a few seconds. Let me get my paper and timer. Apologies. So my team and I were actually outdoors because our car broke down. So this will be somewhat an interesting round. So we're in a gas station right now. Yeah, you can hear the trucks and shit. So apologies for that. My condolences to your experience. Am I still audible? I'm just checking. Sorry, am I audible? Alright, thanks. I'll do a countdown before I start my speech. Again, apologies for the quality of the audio. Starting my speech in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, we tell you that the advertisement of sports betting is a legitimate industry, no matter how controversial. We tell you that there are many other controversial industries in status quo: alcohol, cigarettes, pornography, normal gambling. We think that the advertisement of all of these things in every way, shape, and form is completely legitimate because we have to assume a sense of agency among people and the capacity for people to make informed decisions at the point in which they turn 18, at the point in which they realize that these things are potentially addictive and potentially harmful, but can as such make an informed decision. This is a policy debate about why we should not ban the advertising of sports betting in principle. We tell you there is no inherent harm, and we think that sports betting is a legitimate business, ladies and gentlemen, and ultimately in practicality, banning this does more harm than good, a direct clash towards what they tell you about, this being a form of regulation. More on that in my rebuttal later. But secondly, we think that just like any particular kind of industry, we rather regulate it right now as opposed to their somewhat soft stance of banning it, regulating it. You can't have your cake and eat it too. I'll rebut that more later. We rather do that on our side when we have local and international governments who work together with the Securities and Exchange Commission, along with sports agencies like the NBA, NFL, FIFA, and other corporate offerings who are a part of that. We think that regulation, as opposed to banning it, allows you to benefit from a total industry crackdown on malevolent actors, but at the same time capturing the upside of benevolent businesses who are doing it. What I'm trying to say is that on both sides, there will be a back market. On both sides, if there are people who want to skew the game or want to do it, are going to do it either way. And we think that if people are going to try and cheat, they're going to try and do it on either frame. But at least on our side, we're able to tax those particular individuals who actually comply with it and therefore are able to establish a particular standard. But what do we mean by ads, right? We think that in whatever way, shape, and form, these are particularly fine, whether they're in real life or online, whether they're above the line, billboards and commercials, or below the line, like stuff on social media. But what are my responses? And my case will be integrated later on. A lot of what they told us actually rests on a few assumptions. The first is, it's ultimately unfair and there's cheating. You can oil up wrestlers and pay particular teams. We tell you that specifically to sports betting, as opposed to other kinds of betting, you actually have less cooking involved in that particular thing. Why? Because professional athletes and their teams are actually banned from participating in it. And at the same time, they are also playing for their particular legacy, for their country, for their team. That's why these UFC fighters or basketball players have every initiative to kick the ass of the other team. And we think that that is as opposed to where the house always wins with traditional betting, which we think, even if that's the case, we're still fine with the advertising of normal casinos in status quo. I don't see a particular problem with that. Secondly, in terms of what they told us that, banning is the best form of regulation because since we can't ban it, we rather reduce the supply. Reducing the supply also has certain economic consequences on particularly that huge kind of business and industry that contributes a large part of it to GDP. It employs a shitload of people and is ultimately a form of particular fan expression. We think that sports betting and promoting that actually makes it better and more exciting for the game, wherein people literally put their money where their mouth is at, and as a consequence, you have more virality for the sport and even traction. That is specifically how certain sports way back actually became more popular. Things like cricket, for instance, things like swimming, these different fringe sports which other people knew nothing about actually became popular when you incorporated a human and socio-economic element to it when people are able to profit from it. A lot of what they said is ultimately a hodgepodge of assertions because we think fans are addicted all the time. They're addicted to Monster Energy. They're addicted to Red Bull. They're addicted to Doritos. I don't think there's a particular harm with these particular things for the case in point that corporations like DraftKings or FanDuel or BetMGM, these particular companies allow you to sign terms and conditions and be able to be a adult already before you particularly make an account. But before that, any POIs? I'll take one if there is one. Just unmute, go ahead. 3, 2, yeah, go ahead. Say again. On our side, what regulation looks like is local and international governments being able to work together with the Securities and Exchange Commission and sports agencies so that we can create a standard of what good or bad advertising is like. So obviously, advertising on like YouTube Kids or advertising on Disney is something not allowed, and we don't have to explain that for obvious reasons, right? And we think that the same way we advertise for casinos or alcohol or cigarettes or pornography or all of these other adult stuff in status quo are particularly going to be existing, and it's fine. Why is that better than what you're trying to do? That's particularly better because at least there's now a standard people have to comply to, and legitimate businesses who opt into that particular thing are better able to, because these businesses are actually paying corporate tax, ladies and gentlemen, and the point in which they do comply, of course, the government also gets a portion of that when they actually are being taxed, and ultimately, if they're not being taxed, you can fine them. We recognize that fining them also happens on your side of the house when you actually outlaw the whole thing and it becomes banned. But at least on our side, we're able to benefit from that upside. We think that ultimately, banning this thing in its entirety does more harm than good, which is why we rather regulate this particular industry. What have we told you so far coming from First Speaker? We told you first and foremost that these things are ultimately legitimate and that these businesses have a need to be able to employ people, earn a profit, etc. And ultimately, this is a legitimate expression for fans to be able to do in the spirit of sports, in the spirit of putting their money where their mouth is, in the spirit of being able to celebrate their particular team. I don't see a particular inherent harm with that they haven't essentially proven. And we think that regulation can actually best happen on our side when we're able to capture from the upside of those who comply, as opposed to in your side where you hope people comply with it, but black market's gonna happen either way, and you aren't able to capitalize on those good players who actually do it. And for all these reasons, we're very proud to open First Flash. Thanks.